An HOA tried to force a family to give up their beloved golden retriever, claiming he was too big for the neighborhood rules. But when the family fought back, they uncovered a shocking secret about the HOA president's own pets, sparking a rebellion that no one saw coming.
It was a quiet Saturday morning when Sarah found the envelope in her mailbox. At first glance, it looked like any other piece of HOA correspondence, stiff, formal, with the association's logo stamped on the corner. But the moment she opened it, her stomach dropped. The letter demanded that her family remove their beloved dog Max within 30 days. The reason? Max was in violation of the community pet policy because he weighed more than 50 pounds. Sarah couldn't believe it. Max was a golden retriever, gentle as a lamb, adored by every child on the block. He never barked excessively, never caused damage, and had been with them for 5 years without issue. Yet suddenly, the HOA was declaring him a danger. The letter threatened $100 daily fines if they refused to comply. Sarah's hands shook as she read it out loud to her husband, Mark. He clenched his fists, muttering that this had Linda's name all over it. Linda, the HOA president, had a reputation for targeting families she didn't like, twisting the rules to suit her personal grudges. Years ago, Linda and Sarah had clashed over a simple landscaping decision, and ever since then, Linda seemed to take every chance to make their lives difficult. Now she had found the perfect weapon, Max. Sarah felt anger rising, but beneath it, fear. Max wasn't just a pet, he was family, and there was no way she was giving him up without a fight. Determined to protect Max, Sarah and Mark showed up at the next HOA meeting. They came prepared, armed with letters from neighbors supporting them, photos of Max playing with children, and even a note from their veterinarian confirming Max was healthy and well-trained. They thought reason might prevail. But the moment Sarah stood to speak, Linda cut her off with a sharp tone. "Rules are rules," she said, tapping the handbook with her pen. "The policy clearly states no dogs over 50 pounds. Your dog is nearly 80. He must go." Sarah's voice trembled as she tried to defend Max, but Linda dismissed every word. Neighbors chimed in, arguing that Max had never been a problem, that plenty of people in the neighborhood loved him. Still, Linda sneered. "If we allow this, what's next? Someone bringing in a wolf?" she snapped. The room erupted with frustrated murmurs, but Linda silenced everyone with her gavel. Sarah felt cornered. It didn't matter how many people supported her. Linda had all the power. As the meeting ended, Sarah walked out with tears in her eyes. But in that moment, her sorrow hardened into something else. Determination. If Linda wanted a battle, Sarah was ready to fight one. That night, Sarah couldn't sleep. Something about Linda's obsession didn't add up. Why was Max being singled out when other families had large dogs too? Then Sarah remembered. Last summer, she had seen Linda's son walking a German Shepherd that was easily bigger than Max. Had Linda forgotten about her own rule? Or worse, was she hiding something? Curiosity turned into investigation. Over the next week, Sarah asked neighbors subtle questions. One recalled hearing barking late at night coming from Linda's yard. Another swore they had seen a massive Maine Coon cat peering from her window. Someone else whispered that Linda kept an exotic parrot, a clear violation of HOA guidelines. Slowly, a picture emerged. Linda, the self-righteous enforcer of the rules, was breaking them in her own home. Sarah's heart pounded as she pieced it together. If she could prove Linda's hypocrisy, she could save Max. Armed with her phone, Sarah began quietly snapping photos, grainy but clear enough to show Linda's oversized dog being walked at dawn, her parrot squawking from an upstairs window, and the cat sprawled across her porch. Sarah knew she had struck gold. Linda wasn't just unfair, she was a fraud. When the next HOA meeting rolled around, Sarah didn't come quietly. She walked in with Mark at her side and nearly half the neighborhood trailing behind them. Word had spread, and people were tired of Linda's bullying. The moment Linda tried to bring up Max again, Sarah stood tall and placed a thick folder on the table. "Before you demand I get rid of my dog," she said, her voice steady, "perhaps you should explain these." She pulled out the photos, one by one, laying them in front of everyone. Linda's son walking the German Shepherd, the parrot perched inside her living room, the Maine Coon lounging outside. Gasps filled the room. Neighbors exchanged looks, some whispering angrily. "So let me get this straight," Sarah said loudly. "My golden retriever, who's never harmed anyone, is suddenly a problem, but your oversized dog, your exotic bird, and your rule-breaking cat are fine?" Linda's face went pale. She fumbled for words, muttering about exceptions and special circumstances, but no one was buying it. The hypocrisy was too obvious. Neighbors began shouting, demanding her resignation, calling her a liar. For the first time, Linda's power slipped. She slammed her gavel, but her voice was drowned out by the outrage. Sarah felt vindicated. Max wasn't going anywhere, and now Linda's days as untouchable HOA president were numbered. After the meeting, the neighborhood was buzzing. People who had been quiet for years finally spoke up. Stories of Linda's bullying poured out. Unfair fines, selective rule enforcement, even threats of lawsuits. Sarah's bravery had opened the floodgates. Neighbors who once feared retaliation now stood united. A petition circulated, demanding Linda's removal as president. Within a week, over 80% of the community had signed it. But Linda wasn't ready to give up. She sent out angry letters, claiming Sarah had violated her privacy, threatening to sue anyone who challenged her authority. Instead of scaring people, her threats only fueled the rebellion. Neighbors began holding block meetings without her, openly discussing how to restructure the HOA. Someone even created a Save Max Facebook group, which quickly gained hundreds of members, including people from outside the neighborhood, who were horrified by Linda's actions. For the first time, Linda wasn't the one in control. The community had turned against her. And Sarah? She had gone from victim to leader of a movement. But the fight wasn't over yet.
The final showdown came at the next HOA election. The clubhouse was packed, every seat filled, the air electric with anticipation. Linda sat stiffly at the head table, glaring daggers at Sarah while the neighbors whispered and exchanged knowing looks. When the floor opened for nominations, Sarah's name was called again and again. Linda tried to shout over the crowd, insisting she was the only one fit to lead. But the votes told a different story. One by one, hands went up. Not for Linda, but for Sarah. When the tally was finished, Linda's reign was over. She had lost by a landslide. Some neighbors even demanded she face penalties for breaking the very rules she had used against others. Stripped of her power, Linda stormed out of the meeting, her face flushed with rage. The neighborhood erupted in cheers, and Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she looked down at Max, who wagged his tail happily at her feet. From that day on, the HOA was different. Rules were still respected, but fairness and common sense guided decisions. Max became somewhat of a local hero, the dog who helped bring down the HOA tyrant. And Sarah? She never set out to be a leader, but sometimes it only takes one act of courage to spark a rebellion. In the end, justice wasn't just served, it was celebrated. And Linda, the woman who thought she could control everything, never expected that her downfall would come from the very dog she tried to banish.